somebody who was here in the 2019 WorkSpaces, it is such a privilege and an honor to be here with all of you today in Palm Springs. I'm actually really sad that my flight is right after this. My name is Angela Spangler, and I'm a senior director at the International Well Building Institute. I lead part of the global market development team, and I really focus on a variety of industries in growing and advancing this healthy building movement. Today, I'm going to talk to you about this concept of people first. What does it mean to put people first in a workplace, in business decision-making, in the culture of your organization? How can you translate research into practice to really create people-first environments that will enable people to thrive? Some of you might know IWBI, and some of us may have already met. We are a public benefit corporation and the world's leading authority for transforming health through the built environment with our people-first approaches to buildings, organizations, and communities worldwide. We fulfill our public benefit mission by supporting the global adoption of WELL, which is an evidence-based roadmap for influencing the health and the well-being of people in buildings all over the world. We do this in a variety of ways: how the design of the physical space can influence health and well-being, how policies and operations can govern human behaviors. A little bit about myself. I came to this role after having a background as a professional ergonomist. In the field of ergonomics, you are studying how to optimize the workspace to really fit the human body. How can you create environments where no one is going to be injured, you're not going to get sued, and you're really going to make people feel more comfortable in their work environment? And when I found out about WELL, it really opened my mind to the more impact that you can have. You can attune anything from the acoustics to the lighting to the temperature to the policies that govern the mental health benefits and services that you're providing to your employees. And I saw this as my one-way ticket to really expand my impact. We've been setting this standard for what health leadership looks like for over a decade. Today, I'd really like to kick off this conversation with a few of the trends that we have observed from our vantage point of almost 40,000 projects in, this slide is already outdated, 125 countries around the world, being adopted by over 20% of the Fortune 500s, and impacting over 17 million people around the world. And now I've already talked to some of you about this in private conversations, but just to give you an idea of this growth, in 2019, we presented a version of this slide, and we were so proud to announce that we had 3,000 projects. 3. We had 4,000 well-accredited professionals, which are kind of our network of people who are out there pounding the pavement and talking about the importance of healthy buildings and healthy spaces. And we grew from 58 countries back in 2019 to 125 today, with over 20,000 people in our well-accredited community, and as I mentioned, impacting 17 million lives. Why? If the past few years have taught us anything, it's that demands and expectations are changing. A recent Gartner poll suggests that 70% of workers who are returning to the office right now want to know specifically what's been done to make them safer when they come back to work. Gallup estimates that low engagement costs the US economy $8.1 trillion. And in a recent Deloitte study, I don't know if our friends from Deloitte are still here, we found that 73% of CFOs in the Fortune 100 report that they feel pressure to act on climate change, social justice issues, and support the health of their employees. You might ask yourself, what's really driving this demand surge for health-focused solutions? What's the impetus for people-first design? And really what we're finding is conversations from the boardroom all the way down through the supply chain and everywhere in between. People are really expecting their employers to be partners in keeping them healthy. What do we mean when we say health? The World Health Organization puts forward this definition that says health is a complete state of mental, physical, and social well-being. It's not just the absence of disease or infirmity. This is critical because 8 in 10 working adults agree that employers have a critical role in mitigating their mental health concerns. Now, you might be wondering what actually influences my health. According to the CDC, the spaces where we spend 90% of our time within the built environment, think of your home, your office, your children's school, the places that you shop, the gym that you frequent, all of these environments, the health of that space matters. The culture of that space matters. And it's not just to your health, but it's important for your happiness, your productivity, your engagement, really every aspect of your existence in that space. That's why incorporating these human health-focused considerations into policies and into decisions about design and operations have been adopted by so many companies. So we're finding this direct link between research and practice. And one of the things that we've always known to be true is that health is material. Health is material to an organization's bottom line. There have been a number of factors that have really driven this market push, right? The consumer push, early days corporate sustainability reports. Many of you might have participated in these, provided statistics. These were really opportunities for organizations to showcase what they were doing right and how to attract people to their organization. The investor push comes along with the introduction of GRESB back in 2009, when there were 200 organizations reporting in. Now there are over 1,500 organizations who report to GRESB, and many of them are utilizing this health and well-being module. This really set the stage with WELL projects providing tangible metrics that talk about that S component of environmental, social, and governance reporting. The government push is primarily being led by the EU right now. They want to be one of the first climate neutral continents. And the market push has really grown with having tangible metrics around health and well-being. COVID put that on the map. For many leading companies, their efforts are focused around things like combating productivity pinch points, looking specifically at absenteeism and presenteeism. And these issues have staggering economic costs. One study found that absenteeism cost US companies $2,000 per employee per year. Another finds that productivity loss equals $61 billion per year in the US alone, just due to conditions like headaches and backaches. In the Netherlands, research shows that workers lost an average of 2.5 days per year from unsatisfactory indoor environmental conditions. This represents a 25% of the total absenteeism. We know that workplace has the potential to drive retention. On the topic of this, we can see organizations are now being challenged. Think about ways to recoup those costs of maybe reducing your employee footprint, and think about how you can funnel that money back into your workforce, whether that's by providing incentives to improve their home offices, whether that's increasing technology and connection with their managers and their communities, whether that's fostering a deeper sense of engagement and commitment to the culture of their organization. I think we can all agree in this room that recruitment and retention is top of mind in this competitive job market. Organizations around the world saw a record number of employees leaving the workforce due to demands for better working conditions, more equitable work-life balance. Employees, we've heard, are voting with their feet, right? Those who are seeking out new companies, 76% of those candidates are seeking out diverse companies, and we're seeing that around the globe, diverse companies are 3 times more likely to identify and build leaders within their workforce. The conversation is not just around recruitment and retention, but it's also about performance. The research is clear. Employees in diverse and inclusive workplaces are more likely to enjoy their jobs, work harder and more effectively, innovate more, and ultimately stay at their employers for longer periods of time. At IWBI, we've introduced a new equity rating, which is really focused on elevating the voices of those groups that were previously marginalized and previously unheard. We focus on these 6 key action areas, which you can see on the slide behind me: user experience and feedback, taking the time to survey your workforce and see if their needs are being met within your space that you're offering. Responsible hiring and labor practices, which is going to look at everything from the supply chain all the way through to the boardroom. Inclusive design. How are you recruiting and retaining talent? Are you recruiting neurodivergent individuals? Are you focusing in on key employee groups that might have otherwise been untargeted? Health benefits and services, supportive programs and policies, and community engagement. These are all concepts that already existed within this standard that really stress the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, universal design, you name it. We know that working on well tends to work. This is a small sampling of organizations that have been leading the charge, representing a variety of sectors and industries. As I mentioned, that's one of the things I'm focused on, growing this movement outside of the traditional corporate real estate, but really making sure that health is inclusive and universal and benefits all. One project that I'm really excited to be able to open up a discussion around today is the UCB project. So I am lucky to be joined by Scott Sanford, who is the Program Management Head of Strategic Planning and Operations at UCB, which is a multinational pharmaceutical firm based in Belgium. Scott, join me. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
So thank you for being here and talking about UCB's Well journey. I want to start off with a background question, especially given your specific role and your organization's role in the healthcare space. We're nearing the end of 2022. How do you feel about work-life balance as we've moved out of these quote unquote heavier stages of the COVID-19 pandemic?
It's a good question. I think UCB's always had an emphasis on work-life balance. I think with COVID, we found an opportunity to apply it a little more consistently, creating policies that help specifically the midline managers to make sure their teams have what they need when they need it. The flexibility, I think, is probably the key for us. I mean, obviously we have holidays, we have vacation days. We went a little bit further with that. We added what we call recharge days. For us, the cycle that we're in right now is very, very active. Our pipeline is beginning to mature. There's a lot of work. We're adding a lot of people to our business. The recharge days just gives our teams a little bit of extra time to breathe as they're going through this cycle. So I think it just allows us to step back a little bit and remember that work is not everything. Without that mental ability to be there when you're working, it really doesn't do much for you.
Yeah.
So keep fresh mind, fresh perspective, and just being able to apply yourself in the best way you can.
Thank you. I wanted to congratulate you on your recent WELL certification at the platinum level for UCB's Atlanta's warehouse back in June this year. This was received in tandem with LEED Gold certification, which is quite a feat. Can you walk us through the motivation behind UCB Atlanta's warehouse renovation?
Yeah, it really kind of starts with what I mentioned, the pipeline. Probably 6 or 7 years ago, with the strong pipeline that we have, it really got us to think, how are we going to add the missions that we need to be able to produce these drugs. A mission for us is molecule in the pipeline. You add about 50 up to 100 people to help that molecule go through the many cycles of development.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, they're going to need a place to be as a team. So you're not talking about putting everybody in their own little cubicle. You're talking about an actual team space, which on our campus, which has 5 buildings, we really didn't have that type of space. So we took the opportunity to say, how do we want to do this? Because we know it's coming. What do we think we can do to help solution for this? Lucky for us, our global headquarters, which is in Belgium, Brussels, Belgium, they had just gone through a similar activity, creating a similar space for their headquarters. So we had an opportunity to kind of speak to them and say, hey, when you were doing this, what was your goal? What was your objective? What were you trying to achieve? So we talked with them a little bit just to understand what our options may be. We took an additional opportunity to kind of understand from the employees, what they might be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to kind of figure out what is the next step.
Yeah, on that thread, what were the different stakeholders who were brought in for this design process?
There were a lot, but it was a good thing because what we realized is the space we were trying to design, it was for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So what we were trying to do is make sure that we incorporated as much feedback as we could, whether it was our employees, whether it was our general contractor, our architect, the EcoWorks studio, which is a LEED and WELL accredited organization. We brought them in because we were trying to take that next step, but we didn't know what it was. We even went a little bit further. We had a team of executive administrative assistants, which if you're in a relatively large company, I would highly recommend you get to know those people really good because they know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they can help you and especially in an endeavor like this where they know what their teams are really doing and what they're trying to accomplish. It's very good to have them involved in the process because they can tell you when you need to change course. We also did something, we called it outside in, where we went and visited other companies. As an example, we have a competitor that we've actually done collaborations with in the past called Amgen Pharmaceuticals. They're out in Thousand Oaks, California. We visited them because we wanted to understand what their motivation was. What were they trying to accomplish? What was the end goal? We went to Microsoft up in Seattle to kind of understand some of the technology that we might incorporate into what we were trying to accomplish. We visited Chick-fil-A, we visited Norfolk Southern. There were a lot of different organizations that were doing similar activities. What we wanted to know is the why, so
Right.
we could better understand, are we hitting the right notes, for our employees, for our leadership, for the organization as a whole.
I'm going rogue on you here, but from interviewing all of those key stakeholders, was there any consistent thread that, tell me about
People.
that?
It was the people, really. And and you would think, Microsoft, big company, a lot of techies, they're into their computers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really wasn't that at all. They literally, they spend on average 16 hours a day on campus, which we were kind of blown away by because we're like, well, why would you do that? It's because they literally didn't realize how long they were on campus because of the different activities that we go through on a daily basis. So that kind of mindset for us was like, okay, well, we're not trying to overwork our employees, but how do you keep them? What are the things that are driving them to want to be there? So similar with Amgen,
Mm-hmm.
much bigger company than we are, but it was very similar in that the people were the most important thing. They wanted to make sure, you mentioned in your intro, absenteeism, presenteeism. That was a big driver for them because as a larger company, it's hard to accommodate the lost productivity with their pipeline too. So for us, we were really looking at how do we make sure we are doing this right for the employees.
Yeah. One of the things that we discussed leading up to this talk today was how organizations like UCB are collaborative. It seems like collaboration is really intrinsic in your core values. Have you seen these collaboration methods change in working patterns from before the pandemic to now? Is it actually influencing the way people are utilizing your space?
I think in a way, yes, because you have more options now. What we realized via the pandemic was the hybrid model really kind of opened everybody's eyes. I think I heard one of the sessions, the genie is out of the bottle.
Yeah, right.
Uh, Literally, technology is there. Let's use it. But we also have to remember that part of what drives culture, at least for UCB, is our patient value strategy, which is, we are inspired by our patients, but we're driven by the science. And a lot of times for us, because there's so much data involved, it's easier to decipher and mine that data when you're face to face. So one of the things we try to do is kind of understand that if there's a need for a team to be together, let's take that opportunity. But we don't always have to be together if the technology allows us those one-off type opportunities. So it's a little bit of a hybrid model, which we have incorporated. It has worked fairly well. The biggest thing for us, I think, was making sure, especially after COVID, that our employees understood, if you don't feel good, don't show up. It's just not, it's not the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And I think our managers have adopted that as well. So kind of to your earlier question about, what do you look like from a work-life balance? That is one of the bigger things, is just allowing people the flexibility to make that choice. And it's the same in the design and the application of our new facility. It really is intended for them to make a choice of, how they want to pursue their activities during the day, what type of space they think they might want to be in when they're going through that 8 or 10-hour day.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about that over the past 2 days, like, specifically right-sizing your environment to the task that you're doing. I think the pandemic has really reframed the way that all of us are thinking about the why. Why are we going back to work? What are we doing in this building? I don't remember who said it yesterday, but the leave your laptops home strategy of just really building those social relationships at work. Um, in the way that UCB is approaching hybrid work, what specific features of your physical environment are working for specific employee needs? Like, what have you done to address the people within your space?
Yeah, the space itself is designed, it's what we termed, you may have heard it, activity-based workspace. So there are different areas within the building that allow the employees to make a choice as to how they want to work. I'll give you some examples. There are 4 main spaces that we utilize. One is called the focus space, which is very much like a library type space. With, you got, the mood lighting and the materials, and it's very, very quiet. The acoustics are overdone in that room. But the reason is because the focus space is where people are going to go when they really want to do the heads down work. And part of our feedback forums, what we heard from the finance team especially was they want a space where they can go and do their heads down work and really not be interrupted. And it works. It does work. I would say it's probably the least used space right now, because that building is really energetic. Because when you look at the other spaces, like our cafe space, or what we call our space, it's a combination of our new kitchen, but also a kind of a generalized seating area for eating, or just having a kind of a sit down one-to-one quick corridor conversation with one of your colleagues. That space, I think, is probably one of the ones that is used the most, mainly because of the sustainable kitchen. In our other facility, before we were able to build this one, our cafe, I don't know if anybody has been over to that little market over in the lobby. Our cafe for our entire campus was about 1/3 of that size.
Wow.
And you're trying to feed, 450, 500 people for that one building on campus. It didn't work very well. The new kitchen is probably 6 times the size.
Wow.
And it's sustainable. So no more, cardboard, no more plastic forks. It's all glass. It's really, really nicely fitted out. We have a grow station where we can grow fresh vegetables and spices, so you can add them to your salads, which, by the way, when we did a lot of our surveys to understand what people really wanted, we were kind of surprised that 89% of the people preferred salad over things like pizza or sandwiches or the grill station.
Right.
And it kind of led us to that what you were speaking about earlier is kind of the health and well-being. People really want it.
Yep.
You got to ask them, because if you make an assumption like we did, we absolutely thought pizza was going to be one of the top, and we did go out and buy a 4-foot pizza oven that will cook a pizza in 3 minutes. Hasn't been used.
Oh my, wow.
Literally, because everybody goes for salads, either pre-made or the salad bar. So it kind of, you get those real world, incorporating that real world feedback, it makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Because people can see that you really are trying to give them what they want.
Well, and it reminds me of some of my favorite strategies within talking back to yesterday, Rex Miller wrote the book, The Healthy Workplace Nudge. And if you give people the healthy options, if you make that an easy choice, if you put the salad bar in front of the pizza oven, people are going to gravitate towards making that healthy choice, the default natural choice.
And it's funny you say that, because the pizza oven is all the way in the back.
Yep.
We have other spaces in that building too. There's what we call the Pioneer space, which is kind of a garage type space where the intention is you want it to be noisy, you want it to be very active, because you want to kind of get people to get the ideas out of their head. It's kind of a no holds barred area where people can just literally, throw stuff on the wall, see what's going to stay up there, and then build off of that. And then those 3 that I just mentioned are actually in that building, that one building.
Focus, Cafe, Pioneer.
Correct. And there's a 4th that is called what we call the My In space, and it is more relative to the neighborhoods. You could think of it more of the typical office space. The main difference with that space, which we are to begin designing in 2023, is we're approaching it from the perspective of no desk assignments, no 6-foot cubicles with walls that go 4 feet up. It's more intended to be a collaborative type space, but for teams. So as an example, we are going to try and extract the synergies out of some of our teams that already exist. A good example we love to use is very heavy regulatory, legal compliance present within the pharma industry. We want to bring those teams together, because right now they're on different floors, different wings of different buildings. So it makes it very
offices with doors closed.
Exactly. So
privacy.
When you talk about collaboration, especially something as complicated and important as that, all we've done is made it more difficult for ourselves by dissociating those groups. So we take the synergies, we'll build out the spaces to allow them the opportunity to be together. Sit wherever you want, we don't really care, but this is an area for you to come together and collaborate on a consistent basis, depending on what you want to do.
I love that answer. It really ties in the themes of yesterday of hiring adults, treating them like adults, and like we learned from HOK this morning, choice, autonomy, having enough spaces that are really going to suit your needs to fit what you're doing to the task at hand is.
I think that's a good point. One of the things that we had to remember as we were going through this process is you kind of go back to, who are you doing this for? Mm-hmm. It's a professional employee base.
Right.
Kind of like we were saying, if you don't come into office because you don't feel good, then don't come into the office.
The office, right.
Same thing with, the productivity, and there were some managers originally that were, well, how do I know that people are putting in, the full day? And the question kind of came back, well, what does it matter? If they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Outcomes-based.
Right. Why are you sweating it? It really doesn't make any sense for you to put all your energy into that worry when you're getting the productivity that you wanted anyway.
Yeah.
Same thing, we trust our employees enough. If you need to take a doctor's visit, we don't do that's a 2-hour time.
Right.
None of that. Just
time off. Right.
do when you need to do it, and you know what the expectations are, and let's move forward.
Yeah. I want to focus in on how you used equity throughout this design process. When we spoke on the phone last week, it was one of the key elements. So what specifically?
It's what we talked about earlier. What we tried to do extensively, whether it be through feedback forums, focus forums, surveys, one-to-one conversations, team meetings. I think the idea was we're asking a set of questions, what do you expect? What would you like to see? And I think most importantly, we were asking, what are we missing?
Yeah.
What else, might we want to add? What else is important to you? You try to take all those things and do as much as you can. There were some that were maybe a little outside the realm of possibilities. Somebody wanted an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Ah,
We have a couple different lakes on campus. People wanted zip lines to go over the lakes, from tree to tree, and it was just stuff like that where you're like, okay, I appreciate
sure,
the,
yeah.
good one. No, um, it, it it was good though because one of the things we wanted to make sure of, and if anybody else goes through this process, I think there's a lot of folks in facilities here.
Mm-hmm.
You got to engage the employees. You have to make them feel like they are part of the process. One of the reasons we didn't call it a facilities project, and it's nothing against anybody in facilities, it's more than just a building.
Right.
It's more than just a space. It is intended to be owned by the employees. This is where they're going to work. This is where they're going to operate. They respect it more if they feel like they had a part in it. I'll give you an example of something we did that for us was really important. When we created the 3D design for the building, it was early stages of design. We turned it into that 3D model that could be put on an app. I believe it was called Qubity Go, but it's like it's an opportunity. You take the app and you put it into some 3D goggles,
Mm-hmm.
and you can literally walk yourself through the space before it's ever designed. We did this before we even demoed the existing warehouse, the
Yeah.
walls, and
You mentioned the I-beam that everyone kind of contributed to.
actually we took a piece of the original building because we wanted to kind of keep the spirit of the building. We took an I-beam, cut it down, polished it up, and for those who were able to, we asked them, come in, sign the beam, make yourself a part of the process. We actually posted that beam in between two of the newer beams and display it between the old warehouse and the new warehouse pictures, just so people can see part of the transformation that they helped us to accomplish. We took that same 3D model. This was for us very interesting. I saw on you talked about the Gen Z. We actually took that same 3D virtual tour to our interns in one of the summer internships, and we had them look at it and basically ask the question, what do you think? Are we going in the right direction? And it kind of hurt our feelings because they were like, it's all right. I mean, it's cool. Whatever. And it's like, well, what do you mean? They're used to that. They're used to the environment where they're able to make decisions. It's kind of it's a dichotomy because you've got the experienced employees who are kind of used to, I have my little space and you don't come in it. And then you've got the younger generations. It's like, hey, come on, let's get this cop a squat, sit, talk for a while. So we kind of had to find that balance. So we definitely went the extra mile, but it was to make sure we accomplished as much engagement as we could to make sure we didn't miss anything that was vitally important to the employees.
Yeah, that really ties in great to the next question that I have for you. Your mission at UCB, in the broadest sense, is really tied into improving the lives of people. We're talking about people first places, people first organizations. How did that mission really tie into your decision to pursue WELL?
That's a really good question. We are a patient-focused organization. Our patient value strategy is designed for us to always put the patient first. What we try to do is describe the value in all the activity that we are doing. And the value is directly related to what is a solution for better outcomes for patients living with severe diseases. Mm-hmm. So the space that we created, that high energy, that innovative ideology of come in with your idea, let's throw it around, see what happens. That's important to us because it leads to better solutions in a more effective and efficient manner. Not to say that we still don't use, the hybrid model, the Microsoft Teams calls, but that particular space, we see more productivity coming out of some of those areas than we do when you're on those Teams calls. we've had almost a 90% increase in on-campus meetings for our teams.
Yeah.
Traditionally, we didn't have the space on campus, so people would, there was something, I don't know if it's still around, WeWork, and there was Rome, and a couple other of those types of places where the teams would go and rent spaces just so they could be together because we didn't have it on campus. Now they can do it on campus, and the important aspect of that is some of those teams who are offsite can now connect with their supporting teams who are onsite.
Great.
So it's a big difference for us because it does allow for that efficiency in solutioning to shorten the curve, so to speak.
Are you seeing any specific utilization trends, days of week, season?
Yeah, I think Mondays and Fridays, you might as well close the campus on those days. I think a lot of people, again, we're not doing the badge checking. We're not, doing any type of tracking anything. It's really up to the employees to decide when and where they want to go. But we do notice that Tuesdays and Wednesdays seem to be the most occupied times on campus. Yeah.
I'm mindful of the time. I want to ask you one final question while we're here today. As we look ahead to 2023, what's next for UCB? Perhaps more broadly, are there specific trends that you're predicting for the culture of work? And what lessons can we take from pharma industry moving forward?
Yeah, I think we feel that the hybrid model is here to stay, and I think you've kind of heard that over the last few days. We're trying to do a few different things. We have now what we call the Microsoft Teams immersive space. It's basically a Teams room. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see this. It used to be there was another one called the Polycom Halo room. It's an immersive space, basically where you have huge screens on the wall. You've got cameras, you've got all the audio devices. But the interesting thing about that is you're on one end of the Teams call, maybe somebody in our headquarters in Brussels is on the other end, but when you put the two together, it literally feels like you're all in the same room. So for us, that's big because it kind of gets us into that next level of making sure we continue the collaboration. Same thing with what we're going to be designing in 2023, with the different teams and the synergies that we're trying to create that we haven't necessarily had in the past. That's going to be really big for us as kind of that next phase.
Awesome. Scott, it was such a pleasure to have you join me today for this conversation. Thank you to all of you who are here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Round of applause, everybody. Thank you so much.